Hope everyone's doing well.
Hey,
Ricardo, how's it going?
it's
Oh
going
my
great.
gosh, you look so cool in your hat. I haven't seen you wearing a hat. You're rocking it.
It's affecting the quarantine hair. So
Is it? I know. I was just looking at my ends. I'm like, nobody look at this. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Okay, so I just finished my coffee, so I feel like I'm ready to go. I was having a hard time waking up today. It's been a long week.
Oh
What about for you?
no, I wake up pretty early. Meditation. I fed my green anaconda today. I fed him rat pups. So he's
Okay, let's
belly.
just let you always say this so casually. I feel like to any next geners listening right now, you heard that correctly. Ricardo has anacondas.
Yeah.
Tell us about
Fun.
it. Just like, can we just start there? Let's talk about your pets, Ricardo. And then I'll talk about all of your amazing architectural achievements and like we'll go into that then, after.
Yeah, I'm a proud snake dad. I have a green anaconda whose name is Donby. I got him last month when I moved to the new apartment. And I'm
Okay.
super excited to grow with him and have him grow with me. I've always been a snake man for as long as I can remember, but my mother never let us have snakes. She was like, no, not turning.
I feel your mother's side on that. I'd be like, no snakes now. But you've always just been fascinated by snakes.
Yeah, I went to a zoo when I was younger in Miami. We had to hold the maybe Burmese python, and then I took a picture graduating. I took a picture with two big snakes down at Bayside Marketplace in my
Wow.
and actually a year or a few years ago that came to life where um, I had a red tail boa and I had a ball python and then I also had another red tail boa. Um, yeah, it's
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. Okay, so
fun.
you only have the one snake now, like as a pet? You just have the
Yeah,
one.
everyone's always
Okay.
like, "What snakes do you have?" And I always say, "No, guys, I only have just one."
Oh my
Um,
gosh, but it is a green anaconda, and you
it
said
is.
it's a female, right?
No, it's a male.
It's a male. Okay, and he feeds once every 7 days. Like these are things where you're like, I'm like a cat person or a dog person. So like I don't even understand. So they feed every 7 days. Is that correct?
Right, so he's a juvenile right now, and so he will feed every 7 to 10 days. I keep him on
Wow.
a nice schedule where I feed him every Thursday, Friday, kind of thing. Sometimes it's a 7 day mark or right at the 10 day mark. But yeah,
Wow. And he's eating rats and quails right now. Is that right?
that's right. He's eating rat pups and quail chicks. Bro,
Wow. I hope everyone else watching is like,
I know.
oh my gosh, amazing. Okay, well, I could talk to you about snake things all day because it's so fascinating to me, but also freaks me out. So we'll move forward. Okay, so I'm just gonna do like a little. Here's what I want to say for your intro, and then Ricardo, you take it away and add in anything else that I may have missed. You are currently a designer at GFF. You're on the AIA Austin's board of directors, and you're also on the advisory board for Austin Design Week. So those are the things I kind of have that I think are amazing. Obviously, you have a crazy career. I can't wait to talk more about it. But is there anything else you'd like to add into your bio besides you're part of Network Next Gen Austin? I can't believe I almost missed that. Maybe the
Right.
most important, Ricardo, but anything else you wanted to add in terms of your bio or your career?
Sure. So not only am I in the architecture profession as a senior project coordinator at GFF, and I have a history of being a volunteer. I have a volunteer problem, as I like to steal from Philip Kyle. He's an architect and friend here in Austin. He used to say that whenever he introduced himself, and I have a volunteer problem.
Like
So
I'm in that boat. That's awesome.
and I'm also very passionate about Afro-Cuban culture and tradition and religion. Growing up in as an Afro-Cuban immigrant, I was always exposed early on to a lot of religious celebrations, a lot of colors, and a lot of religious elements. And so I also sing and dance to Afro-Cuban folkloric music.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness, amazing. Okay, we're gonna have to share some clips. Do you have any of this documented?
I do have a lot of
Okay,
it.
good. You'll have to shoot me over some. That's amazing. I really want to go to Cuba. Cuba is just so fascinating to me. I'm like, it's on my list. I can't even wait. Do you get to go back often or not really?
Yeah, so honestly, my family was actually able to go back quite a lot. It's just that whenever they wanted to go or whenever they were scheduled to go, I was always doing something during the summer, trying to
Yeah.
either have scholarship money or some kind of funds for school um, for the following year. So I was never able to join them.
Okay.
But I have an older sister who actually stayed behind,
Okay.
and haven't seen her, ever since we left the island.
Wow.
So
When was that? When did you move over here?
1992.
92. Okay, got it. Oh my goodness. So it's on your list to go back.
Yep.
Okay, good. Me too.
I
I'll
like.
add that
I was
to the list.
supposed to be here, but COVID struck. So
I know it's changed everything. All right, well let's definitely get into this because I'm excited to discuss it. I know I reached out to you and we had a personal conversation that was a lot of fun, and we kind of outlined what we wanted to talk about. But as we know, racial injustice and tensions are really high right now in the country and in the world, and it's really important to me that we state, from the beginning that this is a conversation we want to keep going, and we don't want to just jump on this conversation right now because everyone else is, or we're trying to promote some kind of our own self-interest or anything like that. We have a lot of next geners who come from diverse backgrounds and who are of color and just different ethnicities, and it's important for us to really support our next gen crew, and part of that is having conversations that can be uncomfortable. And I know I talked to you about this, Ricardo. I think a lot of times when you have these conversations, it's important to know where your heart is and where your intent is. And our intent is really to keep the conversation going and to support our next geners in whatever way they feel uncomfortable, treated poorly, whatever that means, just to be there and be able to have the conversation. So that's where we're coming from. So from a place, Ricardo and I have already talked about this, so we're on the same page, but for anyone who watches this, it's really coming from a place of just trying to have better education, understanding, and be able to talk to each other better and understand our own point of view. So, Ricardo, is there anything you want to add to that, or you're just on board with that?
I want to thank you for setting that tone and that intention. I think that when we are having these difficult and sensitive conversations, it's always good to start from a place of love and really start outlining those agreements of how we allow ourselves to be uncomfortable, and we are just open to dialogue and communication and moving forward and healing from all of this. Not to make this religious or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that at that core, setting that intention early on is good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, cool. Well, let's just kind of get into this. So I know when we chatted, you mentioned how it's been interesting. Obviously, the last couple of weeks have been more than interesting. That COVID has really lit a lot of other fires. I know you use that expression, and I think that's completely true. And so, like working from home, focusing on being better people, and even just the ugly truths about race in America, that's not a new thing. But COVID has kind of, sorry, again.
Oh.
Um, and so what are your feelings in general on all this 2020 craziness? And is it for in your opinion, as a Black man who's an architect and designer, is it better that these things are really coming out kind of all at once? Or do you feel like from your perspective, how are you kind of analyzing the situation right now?
Sure. I'm
The
overwhelmed.
broad question, right? Let's just get into it.
No, I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired, and I know that I can speak for a lot of Black people that I've been in communication with, is that we're all just tired of this, right? Um, it's sad that it took a pandemic to bring this to light. And, we as Black people are not only having to deal with racism, systemic racism, but now COVID, police brutality, all that lumped into one. And
Yeah.
I, for one, am grateful that COVID struck and brought these issues to life, because otherwise, what would have happened is the news would have been shared, everyone would have went on about their lives, but the Black community would still have been hurting, and no action would have taken place. So that's why I'm really also grateful for the protests, because people always say that there is oh, that's not the right way to protest. That's not the right way to create change. Well, what's the right way, and when is the right time? If not now, then when? uh,
Mhm.
because this has been going on for so long, and now everyone's buying books, buying up the whole bestsellers books on how to be
Now,
anti-racist. Like, so,
is
that's
that a
something
good thing or is that
that's,
kind of like frustrating? Because like I feel like there could be like a good and a like frustration part to that whole thing that's happening.
no, the good part is that people are buying books and hopefully reading them. And
Okay, okay.
hard conversation. The frustrating part is when people come to you and want you to be the messiah for Black people, or want you to speak for all the Black people, and and all you can say is no. You know, there are books out there. There are resources. Go read a book.
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Okay. Because I know you talked about that too. It's like everyone just started contacting you because now is this right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you say you're the only Black architect designer in all of Texas? Is that correct? Or you one of few? I couldn't remember how you said that.
Oh, sure. So at my firm, we have four Black people. Two are in the IT department. I am the only Black person in the architecture sector, and then we have another Black young lady in the interior design uh,
And
sector,
that's it.
and that's it. Just four Black people out of a
Man.
firm of 125.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so being in the architecture and design industry, just kind of like, focusing in on that, can you discuss your reactions and personal feelings, how you've been approached by your firm to give your thoughts? We're kind of touching on that right now. Because I think what's hard as a white person is when this kind of stuff happens, you want, like, I even did this. My roommate is Black. And so I went to her and was like, how should I be handling this? Because it feels weird to call like every Black person I know and ask them their thoughts and feelings. But
Yeah.
also, as a white person, it's really hard to understand that without hearing personal stories and people that you can kind of like relate to their experiences. You know what I mean? It's like it's a weird, uncomfortable spot to be in. So, can you talk about like how you kind of wrestled with that with your firm and kind of your reaction specifically from the angle of the design industry, maybe, and then you can bring in anything else you think is good.
Sure. So my firm did approach me. I'm gonna be honest about that. And it was a little hurtful, but I did reach out to them, and when I finally did get an audience with them,
Do you think they didn't approach you because they were worried about that dynamic of like reaching out to like someone who is Black in a sensitive time? Like, do you think that was maybe part of it?
I think that was one part of it. I don't ever think that that was intentional, or
Got it.
that they were, out of malice, or or anything like that. I think that no one knows how to react to this, right?
Yeah.
Right. And especially white people, because you also don't want to be the person that's reaching out to your Black friend, right? Like, hey,
Totally. Totally.
you to educate me, or what can I do?
Yeah.
Um, you should, that's it's definitely at that point time for self-reflection to say, okay, I need to probably educate myself first, and then ask the question.
Yeah.
But everything was happening so fast, and everyone was getting statements out, and then there was Blackout Tuesday, and I finally went ahead and nudged my management committee again. Reached out to the firm leadership and was like, "Hey, we need to get out a statement," and shared my experience as a Black man in America, and also within the design industry. Because my first job here in Austin was not the best. I had a very, very racist boss,
Okay.
and yeah, it got to the point where I was always called dumb or stupid, and that I would never be an architect, and that really hurt me.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
a dark, and it put me in a dark spot, but I was able to chat with friends like Cesar, who you met in the first Austin
Yeah.
dinner.
Yeah.
So now he's in Chicago.
Oh my
uh,
God.
but I relied on a lot of friends to console me during that time, because I was very close to leaving the profession of architecture, because I didn't feel like I was enough, and I didn't feel like I could do more. And so I used that energy in order to kind of put myself together. And then when I went to this new firm, the last firm that I was just at, I started just kind of asking more questions and just being more involved in the project, and just really showing what I had to offer, because that's another thing. We always have to work like 10 times harder to get half of what white people have. And I'm seeing this from Papa Pope on Scandal, but he was preaching to the choir there, because I had to be the one that comes in at like 7 and leaves at like 5 or 6, and then it still was not enough. My work was still not enough, and I still wasn't deemed good enough. Luckily, that's not what I'm experiencing at my firm, and they were able to work with me and put out a statement. We didn't add action items to that, to our statements, just because I guess we really didn't know what those were, and I
Wait,
didn't want to.
what was? You broke out a little bit. You didn't add
Oh,
what to your statements?
sure. We didn't add action items to our original
Action
statement
items. Okay,
because we still didn't know. We didn't know where to start, and I didn't know where to start.
totally.
And what happened was we put out a statement, make sure that it was authentic to anyone, and it didn't read like the others. And then what came out of that was formation of a diversity and inclusion committee.
Okay. Well, that's
And
pretty cool.
yeah, no, it's cool. We are planning to continue having these hard conversations about recruiting and how you elevate others, because even at my firm we don't have any Black leadership, and
Which is hard.
it's hard, right? Because as someone of color, someone who's Black, you're always looking for a mentor to kind of guide you so that you can stay in the profession.
Yeah.
And I've had to have mentors outside of my firm, which I'm okay with. But it would be behoove firms to really start looking at their Black leaders and who's really standing out. And really, well, I don't mean to say the word tap. I do mean to retain them and kind of hone in on those skills that they have for potential
Mhm.
leadership. Kind of work with them, and build them up to that level. That
Yeah.
lack of, I mean, it's really telling that we're still a white man's profession.
Right. So you think that's so interesting because Tira, I know you saw Tira Hughes' conversation we had a little bit ago. She's amazing too. But she was
I
talking
haven't
about
met her yet.
education. You haven't met her yet, but you
No.
saw her like live. You got to meet her. We got to get you guys together
Yeah.
because she's awesome. She's a cool girl. But shout out to Tira. But what she was talking about was education. So it's interesting to hear you talk about recruiting because I think that's important too. So like just recruiting people of color with the intention of like we want to raise up this type of leadership. Do you think that intention then is so that we have Black leaders on in leadership so that others coming up can see that it's possible and can see that it's welcoming? That's the whole goal, right? Because I think sometimes people get a little confused on that and it doesn't feel quote unquote fair, or like you're just looking at talent, you're looking at other factors. Can you speak from your perspective a little bit to that? Because I think that is a sticking point for some people. It's like, well, then are you saying you want Black leaders, but you're not looking at purely just the talent then? Like, I think that trips up some people in our heads. So like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how to explain that. I know that's a big one, but
Sure.
I just think that helps as we talk through that because that is a sticking point.
Yeah, no, I think one part of it is the recruiting, but the other part of it is to have a different perspective at the table. You have a room full of white people. Where is the diversity of thought in there, right? Because you have a different perspective than I do. And we, I think if we continue to have these conversations at a table that looks uh, like the population that we want to cater to, I think that's going to bring a lot more force and a lot of change to this, right? And I'm not check the box and have one Black person, one Latina, one Latino,
Yeah.
one. No,
Asian. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so more of just like the thought leader then is different. Okay, I like that. Okay.
yeah.
So you talked about the diversity inclusion committee. You guys started that, which is awesome. Are there any other, because obviously people are looking for the quote unquote solution, which is really funny because this, I mean, not funny, but like, especially when you talk to the Black community, like this has been going on forever. So like to expect a Band-Aid solution in 2020 amidst all this chaos is not going to happen. It's like an ever evolving, I know we talked about that, an ever evolving thing. But are there any other solutions besides looking for Black leaders, the diversity inclusion committee? Is there anything else that you think that, we can take personal responsibility of as designers and architects, but then also firms? just as people are kind of figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah, sure.
You
As
got the solution, Ricardo. You're really solving, a lot of big major nation issues. So no pressure.
no pressure. No, I actually, I wish I had all the answers to this, and I wish that it was just as easy as us loving on one another. I wish
Totally.
that was the solution. But that's not the case. We still have to make space for these difficult conversations, uh, so that they can continue. That's why I'm very grateful for this platform. I've been on others before that have also been doing the same thing, and I think that that's needed in order for us to continue
Yeah.
this change. For firms, I would really start looking at minority. I hate saying the word minority because we're not minor to anyone. We're just
Yeah.
minority by the majority group. But look at those historically Black colleges and universities. Look at those Hispanic serving institutions, and look for the talent there. And don't always send the same two white people that you send to a recruiting event, to an HBCU, to
Okay, that's a great point.
you
I
have
like
to,
that.
yeah, you have to cater to the audience or the talent that you're trying to seek, right? So why would I send two white people to Tuskegee University to recruit Black students, and then the marketing material looks exactly like the white male profession that we have? It's
Okay.
ridiculous to me.
Okay,
Um,
that's interesting.
yeah,
That is so, I don't even know if people think about going to like Black universities to look for talent. So you got to, like, this is important because people don't always think about that. So change the marketing material, know who you're sending, and look at those Black universities and colleges. That's
yeah.
great.
Cultural competency can go a long way,
I love
because
that. Okay.
it's not about treating everyone the same. It's treating others the way that they want to be treated, not the way that you want to be treated, because that's not necessarily the same way I want to be treated, right?
Totally. Totally. That's giving me vibes from the love language book. Have you read that?
No, I have not.
Well, I'll tell you about it later because it's another discussion. But it's about like figuring out how people want to be loved and then catering to that instead of it's exactly what you just said, but also that too. when we jump into more things about snakes and things. Okay, cool. Well, I really enjoyed that. Okay, so you talked a little bit about the equity, equality, dynamic because I know Tira and I touched on that too. And I'll send out this meme. Maybe we can include it, Jessica, if she's listening on the end, because the meme that keeps going through my head is that fence, and the kids on the boxes looking over the fence. And, equality would be they're all on the same level, but some kids can't see. Equity is you change the boxes that you're standing on so that people can see over the fence. You made a really interesting comment about the actual fence and I cannot let that go. So can you talk a little bit about that? And I can remind you, but I think you already know where I'm going with this. But
Yeah,
talk about that image because I think that is something when we talk about equity and quality that's really important. So go ahead, Ricardo.
yeah, sure. So to your exactly like you said, equality is everyone gets a box. Equity is the person who needs the box more, so they can see over the fence. Give them the box, and then justice, just remove the damn fence, or make so that everyone can see, and we can get rid of the boxes. But that's how I really like to think of it. Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. You're right. Inclusion, you bring people to the party. But I don't think I quoted that right. I had to think about it.
No, but
But
you got it. But like just the justice part of it is something that people don't always talk about. Equity,
right,
equality, I feel like we've all covered that. But the
right.
justice part is the actual freaking fence. Like what if we like you said, what if we make that fence opaque? What if we get rid of that fence? Like that's
It's fair.
another issue that the fact that there is a fence is like that's the justice component from what I understood from you.
Right. That's fairness. It's eliminating those barriers, right, to allow for more promotions, to allow for more pay, more mentorship. That kind of yeah. It's exactly that. It's that transparency. Like if you want to move up in an architect firm, where's the transparency about the path to and what you need to do to get there? I know of a firm. I won't mention who they are, but I interviewed with them when I was transitioning firms in November, and that's one of the things that I really liked about how they were doing things. Is that if you knew that this principal had a lot of similar goals to you, right? You could talk to them. There's a way that you could see what their goals were, 10, 15, 20-year goals. And if, those values are kind of aligning with the same stuff that you're trying to do, reaching out to them and, kind of continuing to have that conversation so you know how to get from where you are now to that level. And
Which
that,
is like taking down the barriers, because then that's like
yeah,
removing kind of that, like, quote unquote fence.
yeah,
I like
but
that.
hearing things like, oh, not everyone deserves to be a principal or not everyone deserves to be in leadership, that really, that can really come off the wrong way. Although I know what is being meant by that, maybe there are some poor leaders or people who are lacking certain qualities to be leaders. Well, if that's the case, talk to them. It's a conversation now to talk about how to get from where you're at to where you want to be.
Agreed. All right. So when life resumes, Ricardo, when it quote unquote resumes, when we try to go back to whatever version of normal is, like, what do you hope we gain from all this? Because that was something we spent a lot of time on our personal call, and I haven't really thought about it from that perspective. So, like, what do you kind of hope that people as a nation, as individuals, as designers, as architects, like, what do you hope we kind of emerge from this situation with?
Sure. I hope that we arise or come out of this a little bit more enlightened and more aware of ourselves, our own implicit bias, and how to navigate that. And I mean that for everyone, leadership, you know, everyone from the draft person or the intern all the way up to senior level. Everyone needs implicit bias education, not training, because we're not animals. You can train an animal, but you need to educate humans.
Yeah.
So for me, it's also being more loving. For firms, it's just being more cognizant about how they recruit and how they hire, and that they're just not hiring to hire a Black person, because that's not what we're asking for. We're not telling you to go hire our Black friends just to hire them, right? If they're a good
Right.
fit for the firm and we have a lot of values, then sure, go ahead and bring them on. I really hope that firms will take an internal audit of everything they've done in the past 5 years and really look at their leadership and really look at um, who those people have been that have been elevated, not leadership, but it's a senior level or whatever, and really start thinking about how they've done hiring and recruiting from that standpoint, like that data. Can't really, hopefully people aren't lying on that data, but you can't really cheat that data, and then you can use that to continue moving forward. And because if you can measure it, then you know that you can achieve it, right? So,
Yep. Yep. That's really good. You're giving really specific points, Ricardo, and that's really great. Because then you can do
I
something
shouldn't
about
have
it. That's good. I also think the idea of looking at Black, how do you say it? Historical Black colleges, is that the right way to say it?
right, historically black colleges and universities.
Got it. I think looking at that too as part of the recruitment, because that is something that I feel like I haven't heard a lot about, and that is really interesting. And tailoring your material to that talent instead of sending, like you said, the same two white guys to that school with the same marketing material, tailoring it. I think that's a really good gem from this combo, Ricardo.
Yeah,
Cool.
no, I've had lots of conversations with other Jedi experts and people at AIA National who are much smarter than me about this stuff. And while I may not be an expert on it, it's something that I do really feel passionate about. And if I can have that conversation with my family, if I can bring anything to the table, it's that, continuing to bring awareness. I won't push it, and I won't be the Black person who's speaking for everyone, but I'll just, throw those suggestions out there and, let them do what they will with that. Because I really think it's the current leadership that needs to make that change. I don't think this is something. I think we can try to make it grass right, but because they're the ones in power and they're the ones that can make the decisions, it's going to take having them at the table as well.
100%. All right, cool. Is your snake within reach? Can you put your snake on camera, or is he like sleeping?
No, he's sleeping.
He's sleeping.
Yeah, I can't pick him up while he's eating. I don't want to risk him regurgitating. It's the
Ricardo,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is so fascinating.
yeah. It's
Oh
real.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, the anaconda, maybe we can share a photo later, but that
Yeah.
is the fact that you even just said that from your pet. Wow. Yeah. Probably snakes are probably like babies. You don't want to wake them up, right? Like,
Oh my God! Right now he's such a baby. He's only 8 months old. He'll be 8 or 9 months. He'll be 1 year in October. He
how
was one
long
of
is he right now?
Right now he's 3 feet, but it looks like he's gotten longer, even though this is my first time ever with an anaconda, but I've had other boas.
Yeah.
Are also boas. For FYI, if you didn't know, a little fun fact:
I know
snakes
anything
know with
about
their tongues, and boas birth live, where pythons birth eggs. So, just another fun.
Wow. Oh my gosh, we have a lot of research to do. This is great. Well, Ricardo, I just want to thank you for being part of Network Next Gen Austin, and thank you for doing this. I know, like you said, everyone's calling you, wanting your thoughts and opinions, and that's exhausting. But I appreciate you doing this for us so that we can kind of have that education and conversation and see what kind of we can take from it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. And I'm not sure if you're looking for any more next general, but just a little quick plug. It's a great organization to be a part of
Aw,
and
thank you.
have you. So thank
Oh,
you.
thanks so much. And I can't wait. Let's get rid of COVID so I can come back to Austin because I'm ready. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Ricardo. Appreciate it. Have an awesome day.
You too. Bye
Bye.
bye.